I think it's kind of you're a little naive at first to the mountain ahead of you, I suppose, and it's more just the spirit of like I like the idea that we could create something special that we could share with other people.
I'm Rob Weinkoop, and this is Audrey, and we're Kickstarted Games. So yeah, we are really excited to talk to you because we've been playing your game all week. So you sent us the game. We're really excited about talking to you and hearing more about the Kickstarter campaign. So you're Eric and Justice, and your game is Doomlings. Will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Justice, and first of all, we're really excited to have you playing it. It's a little nerve-wracking, actually. It's kind of like putting your heart out on the table for other people to tinker around with and see how they're doing. But yeah, so we're filmmakers originally, but the pandemic has really flipped our world on its head and opened up a lot of time to get into more of these like passion project things that typically when you have a more normal work schedule, you really just don't have time for otherwise. So,
well, in preparation for our stream here today, I really was looking at your website, and you two look like you've been creators together on a lot of different projects, from commercials to music video to I think movies and television. So you guys have really been doing some really cool high-level video projects. I know you said the pandemic, but why a card game and why Kickstarter?
Yeah, so it was actually over Christmas of 2019. My brother Andrew and I, we really like we like games. It's a way for us to bond and connect. Everybody can appreciate that. But on top of that, it's something that we can bring to our cousins and our family over the holidays and play. The problem is, we're both the sons of, my brother and I are sons of a philosopher, so we will get into the nitpicky kind of granular debate of what the interpretation of the rule is. Our cousins will get really bored, and we thought, well, why not just make something of our own that we can just full stop, and we get to kind of say, well, we're the authority on this now, right?
I can tell you what that rule actually means.
But yeah, so like most things in my life, and certainly that I've worked on with Eric, I think it's kind of you're a little naive at first to the mountain ahead of you, I suppose, and it's more just the spirit of like I like the idea that we could create something special that we could share with other people. And a game was a new way to tell a story. A game was a new way to engage with people in that sense.
It's interesting. Like, I mean, the way that we got into filmmaking was we sort of didn't know enough to know it was hard, to know that like it would be every ounce of our being doing it. And I think that that's the same is true for card games. Like, we were like, oh, there's a way to be an indie publisher and like make your own game. Okay, well, let's just do that then. How hard could it be? And then you get like into it enough where like we're committed now. Oh, you have to run a campaign. Yeah. Like you got to convince people to like it.
Oh, you got to make it work too.
Well, the game is Doomlings, a delightful card game for the end of the world. And so can you tell us a little bit about the name, about Doomlings, and kind of what the little characters are?
Yeah, so the little characters, originally they were called blobbies, dubbed by my cousin because they didn't have names at the time. But
will you show a few on the trait cards here? She's gonna lay a few out, and it looks like they're inverted here. I'm not very technological here. I apologize.
Oh, well, that's okay.
Inverted our picture when I imported it here. But yeah, tell us a little bit about the formerly known as Blobby.
So our game takes place on a planet called Enderis. It's a doomed and distant world. It goes through a cyclical time loop where every 9 to 13 generations it implodes upon itself and then begins again with life anew. And the inhabitants of this planet are called Doomlings. And originally I think it was nothing more than just little balls. These little creatures. We thought, well, how can we express these characters through something as simple as a circle, right? But the idea is that you as a player are competing as these species of Doomlings where you're growing these traits. And so we run the gambit from anything as simple as fangs and, you know, tiny arms to
Big ears.
The flatulence.
to flatulence, right? You know, and we also, you know, we have some of the higher cognition like morality and self-awareness, and we have some of the more scientific traits like costly signaling, which you'll find on peacock feathers. So,
Or my favorite, confusion.
Yes.
Confusion is just a -2 card. So if you, but it plays excellent for laying one down on your opponent. So tell us a little bit about how the gameplay works.
sure. So the object of the game is very straightforward. You just score the most points by the time the world ends. And then the game itself is played in rounds. So we call these rounds ages. And basically, at the beginning of each round, the dealer will flip an age. This is a special card that will come with a unique effect. Sometimes it's as simple as players cannot play blue traits. And that's it. It's just a little rule before everyone takes a turn. Then you go in a circle. Each person takes a turn playing a trait from their hand. And so these traits all have points. Sometimes they're negative, like confusion. You know, not all of them are balanced the same. Some are really strong. Some aren't so strong. It kind of, you know, depends on what you get. But a lot of these traits also have unique effects. So they're the way you also interact with other players. You can steal from opponents. You can, you know, accumulate combination bonuses like bonus points for having more green traits.
I think I really enjoyed it because I think you can play different strategies for different hands that you get in the beginning, but there's so much interaction, I'd say, with other players that it really, no matter what you do, you kind of have to constantly evolve your strategy. You know, you may start out with the strategy of one color, but then you say, okay, switch hands, and then now all of a sudden they've got, you know, all your good cards and you've got something completely different and you've got to readjust. So I think I really like that part about it. There's definitely a lot of take that action, and
but also playing on the short timeline too, because once you've had the catastrophes, you know, it's just one card away from the game being over. So that plays into the strategy too, and definitely so many different ways to play the game.
Yeah,
great.
Can you demonstrate a little bit about the oh gosh, what are they called now?
The gene pool.
The gene pool.
The gene pool. Yeah, sorry. So the gene pool, you start with 5 gene pool, but different cards may have you go up or down on your gene pool, and that has to do with how many cards you have in your hand. So it definitely expands your ability to maybe play higher valued cards the more cards you have in your hand. And so can you talk a little bit about that? I thought that mechanism was really cool. I thought sometimes you can try to control your opponent and really make them have to trim down their number of cards. Overall, I just thought there's some really neat mechanics within this game that just made it very fun for us, both at 4 players and then also at 2 players.
Yeah.
It's kind of become this game that we can fit on our, what do you call that, TV tray, I guess. We've got 2 TV trays in between a chair and the couch, and we can literally watch TV and play Doomlings almost simultaneously. It's a very fun game in that regard, and you can play it both totally into it or at your own pace. I really like it. It's definitely one that we're going to back for sure, and we're excited to have been a chance to play it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. I mean, we're launching on Kickstarter on March 2nd, and you know, we're really hoping to have the support of the community as we go live. It'd be really awesome to see this game come to life and really be available to everybody. So appreciate the you know, the love. I think
Can you tell us a little bit about the timeline? How long did it take you to kind of come up with this from the time from idea to now we're launching on March 2nd?
Yeah, so I'll just briefly cover the first half, and Eric should take over the second half. But you know, again, so my brother and I incepted it in December 2019, pre-COVID, and it was just it was something that he and I could connect over. We live 1,700 miles apart. It was something to just share, right? And we thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to put this on our shelf someday, right? But when the pandemic hit, and we had put all this love and attention into it, you know, we realized, well, we couldn't really share it with our friends. We had to find a way to play test it online. And you know, and then so slowly it started occurring to us, well, we have a game that people really enjoy playing and they really connect with too. You know, it's a game about the end of the world, but it's not focused on the doom and gloom and despair of our, you know, like catastrophes and our inevitable destruction. Instead, it's inviting you to be, you know, kind of just enjoy your time together and, you know, get a kick out of these cute characters and kind of teasing at
Celebrate
the
life,
idea.
really.
Yeah. So, you know, I'd say about midsummer, as the artwork was coming together and, you know, and that's a whole tangent. I had to teach myself Illustrator through the pandemic so that we could get artwork because we just couldn't afford an artist for this game. Right. But as the project started coming together, we started doing some research and found a way to order some physical prototypes. We thought it was really important that these prototypes actually not be just paper and pen, like, you know, a lot of games are tested, but we really wanted ours to, you know, to feel like something special when you're playing it, because we think that's part of this experience. You know, like and
it's
and
very,
so
very high quality. I think, you know, as far as that, what you guys sent out for a prototype was, you know, you've definitely invested a lot, I'm sure, into getting the word out. But I'll tell you, we have played it and we really enjoy it, and we're going to be recommending it. Tell us about that. So I see right here we've got, let me see if I can pull it up. You've got kind of your splash page, doomlings.com. So let's drive some traffic to here. This is where folks can put their email in to get notified about the launch, right?
Yeah. So, you know, what we've been basically rolling out every few days an email that shows a little bit more exclusive content to sort of our like foundation, hardcore people who've been in our corner since day one. We just premiered a gold box preview. And so, because we're going to be having a gold box edition on Kickstarter, we're going to be rolling out some previews of some of the expansion packs we're going to be doing. So we've got like a Dino Doomlings coming up.
We're very excited about Dino Doomlings. We also have Techlings, which is sort of like our sci-fi, fantasy, cyberpunk traits. I mean, these, you know, our traits. We didn't want to limit ourselves. We figure everything from people's imaginations to the science community to spirituality to nihilism. Everything's relevant. It's all part of existence.
Right.
So
it definitely does. I can see the expandability and the writing on the cards and the way that the actions kind of match the way they're described, you know, their titles or whatever. I love it. I think you guys have put a lot of brain power into it, and it really makes for kind of a cute, thinky, you know, take that game. I don't know. That's how I would describe it.
I wanted to mention something too. You brought up just a little earlier. I didn't mean to derail too much, but you know, we also really wanted this game to play well as a 2-player game. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, because right now, especially, sometimes our bubbles are just it's our spouse, it's our roommate. You know, so that's kind of what we have. And you know, trying to balance the game where it plays well for 2 to 6, that's always a challenge, as any game designer knows, but this especially, we thought it was important that you could sit down and play a few rounds as a, you know, it does go on your coffee table easily. It is a palate cleanser between your more in-depth games, right? It is, and yet we hope that it's both elegant and simple enough that the 2-player experience is fun, but it's got enough going on to it that it brings you back for, you know, your little wine.
I sent to you guys over Instagram that when we did our 4-player match, I think, gosh, what did we play? 7 or 8 games of it?
Oh wow!
Wow!
You know.
Yes,
That's cool.
Friends.
Yeah. I mean, we played. Our scores were in the hundreds by the time. I mean, you know, like So we just kept going, and they like, okay, one more. We'll do one more. And so I'm, you know, and I'm not. We're not being compensated for this or anything. You guys just sent us this prototype, you know, but we really like it, and so I'm definitely gonna share it with, you know, our community, and I think, you know, you can tell you've put thought into it. You've got what seems to me a very balanced game. It is, you know, it does have its swingy moments and things, but that's really kind of part of the game. I feel like, you know, you've got, gosh, what's the one card that's worth 17?
Yeah, tiny.
Is Tiny overpowered? That's the question. Is Tiny overpowered?
I would argue not. Here's why. And we have debates about this all the time. Like, Tiny actually represents, I think, a lot of trade-offs in life. Tiny and brute strength, where they appear to be strong, but there are drawbacks to entering any situation with like total power. And you often step on yourself, metaphorically and sometimes literally. And I think Tiny and brute strength are great character traits of people like that, who come in hot to whatever it is they're trying to do, but then they end up shooting themselves in the foot and not being as strong as they thought they were. And so it's kind of an allusion to that.
So to give everybody an understanding of what Tiny, the trait of it, it's 17-point card, which in this game, a lot of cards are worth 1, 2, 3, 4. But the downside to it is that however many traits you have to subtract that number.
Yep.
So what I found interesting is when I tried to play Tiny, I like to find the strategy of, okay, how can I have the least amount of cards here?
Yes.
And so then you start trying to upgrade maybe your 1-point cards to 5-point cards and really try to get small on your gene pool so that you don't have, there's just some ways that you can try to really keep a hold of that big 17-point lead and really jump out. But at the same time, just like you said, if you're not trying to play extra careful to that, you can easily have that card only be worth 5, 6 points or something.
Well, and that's the thing that's interesting about Tiny. In a way, that 17 points can be a distraction because we get really excited about it. But if you're not really considerate of that, you don't think about some of the other plays that you're limited by now. There are a lot of cards that allow you to play bonus traits or steal other people's traits. Well, the more you do that, the more Tiny diminishes in value. So that's where your strategy should be more focused on more the higher point value, high risk, high reward cards with Tiny. And that's generally how we see it. Although I will admit, Tiny we've been, as we continue to play test, get feedback from our reviewers, such as yourself.
A little overpowered.
Yeah, it shifts like 1 or 2 points as we go. We're like, well, maybe we come back a bit. So, we're seeing.
No, I really I've liked the game. I think that one card did stick out a little bit as kind of a power card in the game, but definitely as we played, we've probably played the game
40 times.
Yeah, by now. And so, in that time,
cool.
I will say that all our games, whenever you really try to play aggressively to the Tiny card, those games did have higher point values than some of the other games. But at the same time, I think if you play multiple rounds of this game, you'll see that it's very frequently 15 to 17, relatively moderate point totals. But at the same time, you can have really big point totals. It just really kind of depends on how the cards play out. And I think, it's definitely keeps things fresh and interesting.
So, and one thing we wanted to point out, there was something both of you had brought up where you'll start down a road with a certain strategy, but then you'll have to kind of transition as like cards get swapped and things like that. Well, that's part of the theme of this game, right? Is the idea of adapting your strategy. So we've done our best to remove. We don't want the RNG to feel like as you're playing, what's going on? We don't have any agency. We hope players feel like they are finding their way and finding the strategy. But thematically, we don't want you focused so much. It's not like you start the game and you're like, okay, I'm committing. It's red traits now for the rest of the game. We want instead for you to be playing very much in the moment with other players and adapting as things arise. And that was really important to us when we set out to make
we were playing on our lunch break today, and I had a really great hand, and then all of a sudden Rob hit me with I forget the name of the card, but the one where you have to swap hands.
Oh yeah,
and it just completely messed up my entire strategy. So I definitely agree that there's a ton of variety there. One of the other things that we really enjoyed about this is your explanation of the directions and how you encouraged us to just dive right into gameplay, because that's one of the areas that we get stuck on all the time. The games that come with, the 50-page instruction manual,
Yeah.
and we never get to actually playing it. So
Yeah.
the fact that this one was really quick in terms of learning and we could just get right into playing it, I think that was a huge benefit for us too.
Well, thanks
Yeah,
for
and
saying
I'll
that.
click here right here to your how to play on the website and show people
you go.
just how like simple the
We try to use
instructions are.
pictures,
But really,
you know.
you like you say in here, the best way is just to play.
Yeah.
Just play the cutest card. Don't even worry about it.
So, you know, what we've seen in countless play testing, and you know, we're going for a broad, you know, we want the casual player to be able to pick it up and not feel lost, feel like they're enjoying themselves with us. But we also want the game enthusiast. We want people like us, like my brother, to want to come back too, you know. And that's always a hard line to walk. But what we found in playing is at first you see all these words, you see all these effects, and you're thinking, well, I need to come up with the best strategy. I really need to figure out how this works now, or else I'm going to fall behind. But that's not really how our game's designed. Our game is designed to adapt as you go. And we still, to this day, even I, as you know, probably the person most closely involved with it, I'll find these little combinations, these little tricks that I don't care how often I've thought about it. It never would have occurred to me that you could play the cards in that way. And so,
And then you can really score some unique kind of multipliers. You guys have done that, and I'm sure there was a method to that. You know,
and it comes back to this
math and Excel spreadsheets or something behind it. But it does seem to work out and be really balanced in that regard. I wanted to ask a little bit. Let's talk about the scoring of it. So I will describe this as 100%. This is point salad in terms of that. But I love it. That's what's so cool about it. But one of the funnest things, at least in our 4-person game, is just having fun with fact checking the scoring. So the scoring, there's some. You know, you can do it however you want, I'd say. But a part of it is like, okay, let me see that. Walk me through how in the world you think you got 20 points.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, with the scoring, and that's kind of the trick. So I'm a big fan of trading card games, and that's where you get to see a lot of these unique effects and things like that. But when you're trying to give a wide variety of scoring options to a game like this, well, it can get out of hand really quickly if you don't have some organization to it. So in our rules, we have a 4-step process for scoring the game. I think it distills it down quite nicely. It makes it so that people don't feel like they have to do all this arithmetic. Instead, you just follow these steps. But you know, like at one of those
I'll
steps,
show that right here. You made this, and I thought that was interesting. You know, to be honest, you know, we didn't use that part right initially, but then we were like, well, what do these little things do? And then we kind of figured out, okay.
Smooth.
But at that time, we were like pros at adding it up. So it's
it.
like, okay, well, but I could see if someone, you know, you've got the map for them just right there. How to...
Well, so like some cards, for example, just have bonus points. So we have Sticky Secretions gives you +1 point for every purple trait in your trait pile, right? So you just want to get more purple cards. You have Random Fertilization, and that gives you that point value equals the gene pool that you have, which I know we didn't quite get into, but so if your gene pool is 5, that card is worth 5 points at the end of the world. And so what we've done is we added these little icons just for quick reference. You don't have to use them, but what we found is if you have 10, 15 traits in your trait pile, you just look for those and this one has a bonus that needs to be added up.
So I'm doing all the drop of life points right now. I'm going to do all the truffle star next, and you just kind of go through, and then there's just like a little handy chart that you can make and tally up all the points. It's really, really clean way to add them all up.
A few cards, do you have end of the world kind of player interaction, or at the very least where you need to know what's going on in your opponent's trait pile? So that has its own icon, just so you can quickly isolate those and score that in its relevant step.
And actually on that note, because I don't think we really talked about catastrophes, but as Justin was mentioning...
Here, I'll scroll up here and let's talk about catastrophes so people understand what they do and...
So basically, I mean, because every single round is a new age, and each age introduces a new rule to the gameplay. Hidden within those ages are catastrophes, which introduce adverse rules to the gameplay. And so after 3 catastrophes, the world ends. So all of the players should be keeping an eye on how many catastrophes have we hit so far, so that if you know, like, hey, it's been a couple of ages since we've had a catastrophe, I should probably play my strongest cards in my hand because we're getting close to the end of the world. It's kind of a nice way for everybody to be on the same page and just think about like what our end goal is and how to get there.
Right.
And there's some cards that benefit more being played early on and some cards that benefit more being played later on, which you discover that eventually, you know, those are things that start to occur to you. But, you know, for example, one of our traits, echolocation, it's a dominant trait. Those are our powerful kind of rare traits that all players are limited to 2 by. But echolocation allows you to draw 1 card at the start of your turn. In our game, you don't draw cards at the start of your turn. So that's a very big advantage. Yeah. But if you're playing that after 2 catastrophes, well, just the way the game's laid out, you already know the game's going to end in 1 or 2 rounds. So you may not really benefit the same way had you played that on round 1 or 2. So,
and actually, that's a good point. Just talking about, like, you know, there are some cards where, from a strategy perspective, I don't think it's wrong that we give this away, but you want to play cards that will increase your gene pool early on. Your gene pool is effectively the number of cards you are allowed to have in your hand. And so the higher your gene pool, the more cards you have in your hand to be able to draw from. And so as the catastrophes hit, your gene pool will naturally shrink because many of the catastrophes will tell you, hey, everybody, -1 gene pool. Those kinds of rules come into play. Right. And so if you can build your gene pool up early on in the game, you'll actually be able to be at an advantage against the players who get whittled down to like having 2 or 3 cards.
Just gave me a strategy because I hadn't figured that out. I'll be honest. I must be terrible at games because I have played, like she said, probably 40 hands of this, and I haven't.
There you go.
I don't think I've really paid a ton of attention to try to really get out there on the gene pool. She did it recently. She was like,
on the 8th.
I'm sorry if I gave away your secret.
Yeah, I just noticed that. So, but thanks for confirming it, and I'll definitely include it into my strategy next.
And one thing we want to go ahead.
Regarding the catastrophes, I love how there's, or even the ages, there's a variety. Some are really terrible, and some of them aren't so bad. So it's a nice surprise too. And again, just speaking to the variety of the game, there's still traits, ages, catastrophes. You know, we just said we've played probably 40 hands, and we're still seeing new cards and new varieties coming up. So
watch out for the 4 horsemen, I'll tell you that.
Interesting and fresh. And
and definitely with expansion content and stuff like that, that's going to be really fun. So. All right. So what happens between now and March 2nd? So what are you doing?
No sleep.
Get the word out and.
Yeah. So between now and March 2nd, I mean, so obviously we're working with a lot of reviewers like yourself. It sounds like it's been very positive, which we're just so blown away by. You know, it's really important. You know, we're asking all our friends and family and people who want to be in on the ground floor to pledge on day 1. That really helps us with the algorithm on Kickstarter. You know, Kickstarter's like, oh, people like this game? Sure, we'll show it to more people then. You know, oh, people are like thinking about it? Well, we'll bury it then. And we don't want to be buried by the algorithm. So it's super important that everybody get their pledges in on day 1, just because then we can really make sure that this game gets out to the masses. I did talk about there's a gold box edition. That's a Kickstarter exclusive that'll never be shown or sold anywhere else. We're also doing a Kickstarter exclusive black box edition. And so the different boxes have different amounts of expansion packs. And that gold box I mentioned will actually have an advanced player mechanic expansion pack. And so I think Justice can talk a little bit about the advanced player mechanics.
Well, we like to call it advanced play, but you know, it's called the meaning of life. And so every species, every player gets a hidden card that gives them an objective to try to accomplish throughout the game, which just can swing in your favor towards the end of the game. But all these expansions, they're nice little touches. They're there to elevate the game, give you new content to think about. Dino Doomlings, we have a lot of fun content. Like sometimes they're, you know, like dermal armor, and it's just a little ankylosaurus, you know,
tiny arms.
Tiny arms, because got to give some love to the T-Rex. So, but yeah, the expansions are there to just stimulate the imagination, give you more replayability, more options. and more ideas to be added to the game.
And actually, that's a good point. Like, you know, already with the base game, there's over 150 unique cards. As you start adding the expansions, you know, you get to like, with the completion, it's like the entire all 6 expansions. You're looking at like 240 unique cards that
Wow.
This man right here has designed each and every one of them by himself. So it's pretty impressive. But between now and March 2nd, we're not sleeping.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Anything else we need to know about the campaign? We'll certainly make sure to include a link to your website, which is doomlings.com, and folks can go over there and get signed up for the email notifications to get some more insider looks on Doomlings, as well as get the notification on launch to go back it on the first day.
On that note, for that newsletter, one thing we're also rolling out, there's this thing called the Captain's Log. And the Captain's Log is a recording of like a fictitious captain who has visited the planet Indaris, and she's sending these dispatches back as she explores the planet. And so people who sign up for the newsletter will actually get early access to the Captain's Log, and you can listen to all of the things that she's learning about the Doomlings as she's exploring the planet. So sign up for that. That's also available. And then once we go live, we'll be rolling out one dispatch from the Captain's Log each and every day of the campaign.
Very
nice
fun.
Nice. All right, well, thank you so much, Eric and Justice, McCoy Meyer, doing their thing, trying out the card game, kickstarting this awesome game, Doomlings. And one thing I wanted to ask, do you have a goal in mind? What's your ultimate goal? Do you know, in terms of funding goal? You got that yet, or were you just
we're gonna keep that a little under wraps, because in the background we have a couple different scenarios. First and foremost, and we've said this since the very beginning last year when we first started this, we want this game not to feel like just, it is indie published. We're just 2 guys or just a small team, but we want you to feel like you're getting something that will last you the end of the world, something that you can feel really proud to open and feel really special about, right? So, nothing we're going to do here is going to end up changing our lives financially, right? And that's okay. But if we exceed expectations and we have kind of numbers in our heads, if we can get enough love and support from the community, we're actually going to transition to, we have a sequel follow-up game that we would like to do to this, expanding into the board game world. And then we also want to go to retail, and honestly, we just have a lot of bells and whistles and elevation. We want to do content ads that I can't talk about right now, because if we don't get it, then I've promised people
there's a whole lot of egg on his face. I got a claw.
Hey, that's okay. Hey, you guys have done a great job so far. You look like a top-notch operation, and we really were excited to review it. And thank you also for taking the time to do a video here with us and kind of tell us about it. And so yeah, thanks very much, and good luck on March 2nd and beyond. I think this is going to be a really good campaign, and I think you're going to find the community is going to be behind you. I think you will. I can tell you've put a lot into it. I think people are really going to respond well to it. So just keep growing that email list and just try to, as far as, we talk to a lot of creators, and we kind of have seen how people can be most successful, and really just try to get as many people like you're doing right now between now and March 2nd to know about your game and hear about your game. And we'll do whatever we can to try to help do that, because you guys can tell that you've put a lot of effort into this, and the game really just works well. So
we appreciate that. It means a lot that you two played it. You two have a good operation going on here, and I was a little nervous going into this thing, if I'm being
Oh gosh, not at all, not at all. We're just a couple of people playing card games at our house, but hey, we do love to share indie creators, and you guys, we can tell that you put a lot of love in this one. So thank you so much for joining us here on Kickstarter Games, and we'll be talking to you soon.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.